There we go. Wow, it's very dark in here. One moment. Turn on the lights. Move that closer. I always forget how dark this room is. Let's see here. Hello, everyone. Be very afraid. Be very, very afraid. Let us refresh the chat. Fix my... There we go. Come on, chat. Come on, come back. There we go. Nice. Hello, everyone. We're a little off-center. Hello, hello. Okay. It didn't like being there, apparently. Hello, Gonzalo, Natasha, Lobsoul, Daniel, Ice Devil, Goth Fox, Abigail. Saw your video on abuse in Silent Hill. Nicely done. Thank you. Do check that out if you haven't. Talking about abuse in Silent Hill, we're about to abuse the hell out of it. Oh, God. It's time for Fanfic Friday once again. If it's been a while... I guess I should keep the chat there if I'm gonna have, we'll put it here. We used to do every Friday, it probably was not every Friday, many Fridays, we would do Fanfic Friday, which was a thing where I would read aloud, fanfictions that I wrote as a kid, typically in the early teens, some from later years, but that's most of what we've read. I actually am really curious when this started. I'm gonna see when I started doing this. It's been on and off for a while because we got distracted with other stuff. My health got bad for a while. Looks like we did this mostly in 2019 to it started in August of 2019, so technically kind of the anniversary of Fanfic Friday. Oh my god, August 26th was the first one in 2019. And then we went on through, most of it was in 2020, which obviously, I mean, what else did we have to do in 2020? And then it looks like, yeah, we finished most of the stories in 2020. We started the Silent Hill 4 one in 2021 is when I brought Fanfic Friday back. And that's the story we've been reading through that's kind of taken me a while to get to, that we are going to try and actually finish soon. If you've missed previous episodes, all of them are now available on the second channel, the book channel, which is linked in the description. The Gaming Muse with Gay Gaming. All of them are now public, so you can go watch the old ones. But to give a quick summary of the nightmare you're about to step into, which it is a nightmare. When I was in high school. I was in high school. I became a very big Silent Hill fan. Particularly Silent Hill 4 was my favorite, and I wrote a very long 9-partish series about Henry and Walter falling in love. And there was a lot of hand-wavy nonsense in it. I rewrote the epilogue, added a bunch of stuff. Like, there's some things you've probably missed if you've not heard previous episodes, but suffice to say, they all died. And they're all stuck in the afterlife in the apartments together in the bad ending. Except Walter is a good guy now for plot reasons that happened last time. So you should really catch up on the gay Silent Hill lore. Very important lore. This particular episode is traumatizing because it is perhaps the second time in my young life I had attempted to write smut. Yes, we have come to the smut section. I'm a Wesker Chris shipper. I did as a kid. That's actually the very first Fanfic Friday we ever read was Chris and Wesker, because I was really big into Resident Evil 5 at that time. It was a game me and my friend played to death. Nowadays, I don't really do a lot of Resident Evil, but, you know, I've read me a thing or two of a thing or two. This story is not the first smut I ever wrote, because I wrote a Cloud/Vincent story when I was in middle school that I wrote, and I think it's just lost to time because it was like, I printed it out and I don't know where it went. All I remember is that it involved Vincent and Cloud doing it on Cloud's motorcycle in a canyon somewhere. And that's all I remember, really. And that was probably the first time I wrote smut. So this might be the second time I wrote smut. And this is all really, I'm avoiding reading the story. It's 10 minutes, and I really should start actually reading it. I don't want to. I actually really don't want to. It would also help if I got to where, oh, this thing's broken too. Refresh that. I forgot to add my slideshow. For those who are joining this for the first time, I have slideshows of pictures that, wow, this might not actually image file. How do I do a slideshow? I have forgotten how. I guess we're just gonna add in image one at a time, I guess. That's gonna be weird, but let me go ahead and get an image. I would make very poorly made, there we go, that's the cover. Poorly made Photoshop images to go with the story and whatever was happening in the story. So that is returning today, obviously. So I guess I'll just have to change the image for each slide. So slide 1 would be that one. Here we go. This one's also got a song in it. I don't know why it has this song in it. I'm so sorry to the songwriter. God. Hello everyone joining us. Welcome. This is a nightmare. And it opens with the song Eat by Regina Spektor. It's like forgetting the words to your favorite song. You can't believe it, you were always singing along. It was so easy and the words so sweet. You can't remember, you try to feel the beat. Has nothing to do with anything. Nothing to do with absolutely anything happening in this story. But let's just suffer. Let's suffer together. Everything looked different, despite the fact nothing had changed. Henry Townshend, lithe arms crossed over his chest. They aren't just arms, they are lies. Leaning back against the counter, let his half-lidded eyes wander aimlessly around the room. Oh god, I'm in my adverb phase. Everything has to be described. I'm actually really curious. What year was this? This was written September of 2010. Okay, let's math this out. I was 17. All the furniture and decorations of room 302 were as they'd always been. A gently smug smile, tired and content, graced Henry's face. So it's gentle, it's smug, it's tired, and it's content. So it's like... I don't know what that smile is. I feel like I'm still very dark in here. I don't know why this room is such a pit of darkness. And it's because the overhead light doesn't work. That seems good. Oh, God. Nothing had really changed, yet it had. I should probably actually give a short... So last time, if you don't remember, Henry and Walter fought the cult guys who controlled Walter's brain. 'Cause in this story, Walter was kind of driven to do the stuff, the murders, because of the cult controlling his brain, and so they set him free, and then they kissed, I guess, and that means they're dating. So like they're dating now, I guess, and that's why he's like, everything's changed because we did a kiss. I kissed my murderer, yay. Oh god. Okay, I have to change image already. We're already to a second image. The sound of a zipper had Henry turning his head slowly, as if looking to see who was there didn't matter. He already knew who it was. That was really weird. Standing in the hallway was Walter, hand on the collar of his blue jacket as he pulled it back on. Arms dropped. He glanced up through blood-stained blonde hair and titled his head. It's supposed to be tilted, but I said titled. He titled his head. Henry nodded appraisingly, and that was all the approval he needed. A smile was Walter's reply. He took a few steps to the other side, standing just by him so their shoulders brushed. Wow, I am really going all detail on this. Hello, folks. A hum of approval left Henry's throat as he closed his eyes and leaned his head onto Walter's arm. A content bliss, like coming down from a high, permeated his entire being. There truly was peace in room 302 now. peace and the pleasant undercurrent of renewed hope. Speaking against the puffy fabric of the jacket, Henry muttered, "What now?" An arm came up in front of him and took firm hold of Henry's opposite shoulder, pulling him into a sort of sideways embrace. The warmth in the room increased exponentially for multiple reasons. When Walter's chin came into his vision, Henry turned to nuzzle his jawline. "We live," the man stated, lips moving against Henry's forehead. "Well, in a way. It's a static, unchanging life. There's no future." Walter moved so his chin rested on Henry's hair. "I suppose exist is a better word." The head beneath his shook. "No, this is living." A relaxing sigh fell across the blonde's neck. "This is the best I've lived my whole life." Wow, that managed to be very sad. Wow, that did manage to be very, very sad. But yeah, I am clearly in my I must be profound and descriptive phase, where everything has to, I have to use as many words as possible to try and convey the feelings. Like, you must understand, they are feeling, and I need you to know that. Oh my god. Henry, Walter. And now we're in a new scene. Eileen raced across 301's floor and practically leapt on both men, who happened to be side by side when she flew. Each man caught one arm and held the girl in a funny triple embrace. So funny. Oh, so funny. The three involved shared similar appearances of grins, laughter, or soft smiles, while everyone else in the room had the astonished deer-in-headlights look. "What happened?" The question came from Jasper, who sat with his knees to his chest on the couch. "The worlds, they all feel different." Still beaming, the three friends separated, and Eileen kept a hand on their shoulders. "He's right. What's changed?" "What didn't?" Henry opened his mouth to reply, but the large hand on his arm stopped him. Surprised, he turned to face Walter's inquisitive gaze. He had a small smirk, eyebrow half cocked, a darkness in his eyes that belied mischief. Henry frowned knowingly. "What are you planning?" "Oh, God. Jesus Christ." Another warm palm came to his shoulder, and soon he was being turned and pulled towards Walter, eyes widening in realization. "You..." The lips swallowed his words and his thoughts, and he was drawn away from the world, unable to hear the noises and gasps of those around them. It was only teasingly long enough to get the message across, leaving Henry irritated and wanting when Walter pulled away. "Oh, I'm wanting an end to my life." Stiff, bones locked, Henry avoided all eyes, but that nervous fear of rejection didn't last long. Eileen was soon flying at him again. She is a flying Pokemon, apparently. That's her type. "Oh, finally," she squealed, hugging his neck tightly as he struggled to catch her. "I knew you two would get together eventually." "What's that?" Unable to help it, the brunette grinned, a happy blush on his cheek. "Your squealing made me deaf." His sarcasm was ignored as more squealing joined Eileen's. "About damn time, you foolish, silly little..." Why are we all happy about this? Why? Cynthia stopped cursing to bellow with joy. To everyone's surprise, she sauntered over in her heels and pressed a light peck on Walter's stubbled cheek. She leaned away, her eyes surprisingly serious. "You'd better take good care of him." The blonde didn't hesitate to nod. Eyes lightning? Lightning? Is that a word? Her eyes are lightning bolts. Cynthia grinned and turned to Henry. "Same for you, sweetheart." Then she pulled his head to her and shared another cheek kiss. With one hand on each man's shoulder, Cynthia leaned back and shared a slow-growing smile. "It can only get better from here." Can it, though? Can it? Or can it get much worse? Much worse. Oh, God. Oh, God. Dinner made and enjoyed. Oh, I think I have another slide for this. Oh, Jesus. Dinner made and enjoyed. Movie on and playing. Walter sat next to Henry on the love seat. It really wasn't one, but it was so aptly named that by the giggling girls in the group. It was odd sitting beside the other, bodies touching, hands entwined and resting on the gap their thighs created. On the gap their hands resting on the gap their thighs create? I don't understand what I'm trying to say there. The rush of freedom he received doing such a thing in front of others, not fearing judgment or analysis. There wasn't much in his life Walter had done which had been free of condemnation or ire. Others watching him, telling him what to do, punishing him for wrong decisions. Never was anything completely his. The man's eyes danced to Henry. His head was limp on Walter's shoulder, eyes half shut and posture lax. So trusting. There were limitless ways he could destroy this man, ways to torture, to draw out lingering agony, and no one in this room could hinder him. Why? Frowning, Walter turned away from the heart-rending sight. Heart-rendering. It rendered his heart. Wow, Mr. Joe Biden is here. I am really honored and horrified that this is when Mr. Joe Biden, Joseph Gordon Biden, has joined us. But you know, it had to happen one day, so thank you. Thank you for suffering through this with us, Mr. President. I mean, you've been there through all the tops and twists and turns and ups and downs, and now you're here for the terrible Silent Hill yaoi porno. And that really means something to me. Walter, the soft whisper came. You all right? Nodding, Walter tried relaxing his pose again. Still his boyfriend, loved one, victim, seemed tense, eyes lingering on him. Walter focused on not looking back, eyes staring at the movie, but not watching it at all. It was impossible to see or hear with all the thoughts swimming in his head. Why? I don't deserve this. Why would he want this? Why? All his sense locked out but one, the ability to feel the gracious warmth of the relaxing angel beside him. Oh, God. Oh, God. Oh, God. This is terrible. Jesus Christ. Oh, okay, next slide. I didn't even edit this one because I just think that image is so funny. It was the strangest, happiest week of Henry's life. Despite living inside a world of ghosts, a phantom apartment with a bunch of odd spiritual companions, not to mention his boyfriend, the serial killer, the brunette felt decidedly happy and free. Free to reach over and hold Walter's hand without repercussion. Free to let his eyes roam over the other's body, receiving a soft smile when caught in the act. Free to openly love a man. Walter Sullivan. The thought floored him for a brief moment as Henry realized that yes, he was in love with Walter. Had been for a while, and it grew stronger every day. Heat flooded his cheeks, but he didn't resist the urge to smile happily. I can resist that urge right now. I definitely can. Henry. The man jumped slightly, turning to see the subject of his thoughts approaching with a curious look. Oh my God, what? In one hand was a PS3 controller, the other a bottle of water. Even though they were together, his cheeks still flushed pink. Sorry, coming. He closed the fridge, which he realized he'd been staring blankly into for about 5 minutes, and left the kitchen with his soda. Walter only watched as he passed, eyes glued to the ground, but an arm came up and blocked his path. Are you all right? Came the rough tenor near his ear, which always left him shivering. Perhaps he nodded too fervently or quickly, because when he looked up, Walter was smirking as if he knew. Henry frowned and shoved his arm out of the way, though it was hard to keep frowning when Walter laughed behind him. I think we're flirting, maybe. I think maybe this is what teenage Muse thought was flirting. Very, strange mating rituals that involve Little Big Planet, apparently, is what we're getting to here. With a roll of his eyes, he sat on the couch and watched as Walter approached. The man tried to pass between Henry and the coffee table, but the brunette set his legs up to impede him. The other chuckled and stepped over. So mature, Henry. His retaliation was to glare playfully as Walter sat beside him. Temper tantrum temporarily forgotten, Henry turned to the game on screen and stared. Little Big Planet. Walter lifted the controller and began playing again with a shrug. The only signs of his embarrassment were the slightly lowered eyes and tense shoulder. Henry smiled and scooted closer, unfazed. It was strange to see a man like Walter playing a whimsical game like this, but Henry was glad to see he was able to be open and relaxed. Sometimes he would play other things, but the more non-violent games like Legend of Zelda, Spyro, and Little Big Planet were his preferred titles. It was kind of cute. This makes me wonder, so if the events of this game happened in 2004, and Little Big Planet came out on the PS3 after 2006, does this mean that the worlds Walter created moved forward in time and he was able to go to a Walmart and buy a PlayStation 3? In the other world. He has an otherworld PlayStation 3. Are you stuck? Henry let his head fall onto the other man's shoulder, watching as the sack boy on the TV attempted to make it through a wheel of death-type contraption. The poor thing didn't move fast enough, flailing on an edge as the wheel spun before falling and being electrocuted. Yeah, the blonde grunted, half annoyed and half having fun. Russia's not a nice place. Oh my god. If you've never played Little Big Planet, the first game was themed on places and the last level was Russia. I remember this section. It was really hard for me when I was a kid. Apparently I put it into a fanfic. Henry could care less about the doomed sackboy. He turned away and rested his forehead against Walter's arm. I always wanted to visit. You could take beautiful pictures there. All lives depleted, the blonde lowered the controller and looked down at him. I would take you if I could. Surprised, Henry glanced up, taken aback by the soft sincerity in Walter's face. A happy glow entered his eyes as he simply moved forward and let his head fall into the man's inner arm. I'm fine right here. He couldn't see the man's reaction, but squawked like a... Oh, God. Oh, God. He squawked like a bird when suddenly two large hands grabbed his waist and lifted. In a flash, Henry found himself much warmer, leaning against something that moved slightly, his legs embraced by Walter's longer pair. Moved slightly? I guess he's saying he's sitting in his lap with the legs... Okay, that's a weird way to phrase that. I like you here, too, Walter replied as he let his head fall on Henry's shoulder, which was shaking from nerves. Oh... Swallowing, Henry glanced down, trying not to focus on the wonderful sensation that was driving him mad. The warmth radiating from behind him. They're hugging. Like, they're not doing anything. But I'm 17, like, oh, this is so racy. Oh, they're sitting on the couch together. I was such an innocent baby. Like, oh my God. At this age, all my friends had dates, partners, probably I know a lot of them did have sex. I know. I did not, I was slower to mature. I did all that in college, but in high school, I was like this little innocent baby. Just like, they're hugging. Yay! Oh my God. He took his chance when he saw the controller, snatching it up and restarting the game. Walter didn't comment, simply wrapping his arms around the other's waist and turning to face Henry's neck. Hey, though he was smiling, Henry elbowed Walter gently when light kisses started. Don't distract me, I'm trying to win. Consider it, the lips contacted gently? They contacted gently? That's a weird way to phrase that. Like, they touched his skin gently. They touched him gently. They contacted him very gently. Then they moved, an added challenge. They landed again, lingering to suck and nip at the skin. This level's already hard enough. Walter made it to the small gap under Henry's ear before the man turned to glare at him, eyes darkened by want, cheeks flushed, mouth open and panting slightly. From what? He didn't do it. This man is horny on main so bad. Like, I guess he's been alone and repressed for so long. Sitting in his boyfriend's lap and having him just, like, smooch his neck a little bit. He's like, bring. Like, that's it. That's enough. Still, he acquiesced, letting Harry, no, go Harry, escape. God, no, Harry. Letting Henry play unhindered. Walter simply held him, breathed in and out. Breathed him in and out? So he was breathing him. Ugh. Becoming absorbed in all that he was. They're playing a game on the couch. Ugh. Part of him rejected this could ever be happening, that he could ever deserve it. But another, larger part desperately needed it anyway. Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay, considering Walter most likely never received a hug in his life, that's not so silly. True for Walter, but that was Henry. That was Henry that was, like, freaking out about every little thing. So I guess he also, which, I mean, Probably, yeah. God, this only gets worse. Oh, God. So, how are things? Henry usually enjoyed Cynthia's company. She was a very passionate, straightforward person who never held her tongue, and Henry was slightly jealous he wasn't more like her. But along with that, she was easy to read and a bad liar. It was obvious she currently had a double motive for visiting him, since she was, perhaps, as subtle as a tank. The man shrugged to her question, sitting at Walter's desk with pen and paper in front of him, ready to be filled with prose or poetry or something. Currently, that seemed unlikely to happen. The Latina before him leaned against the wall, smiling, still waiting for a vocal response. He frowned. "Can't you pester someone else?" He started, but that felt too harsh on its own, so he added, "Why not participate in your favorite pastime?" Shock covered her face, tinged with amusement, and Cynthia quickly burst into laughter at the closest Henry could ever come to making a dirty joke. "Well," she smirked and winked at him, "all the good men around here are literally taken or gay, so there's nothing for me to do." "You mean no one?" "Henry, you cheeky bastard." She laughed again, hitting his shoulder. "Being with Walter has made you a dirty boy." "I'll have to talk to him." "No," flushed Henry, turned at his seat and gesturing at her. "That's a bad idea." "Why is that?" Arms crossed beneath her ample bosom, an instinctive thing she did when she wanted to get her way, which really had no effect here. Cynthia grinned. "Afraid I might give him some ideas?" "In a way, yes." The woman sat on a nearby stool and crossed her legs, and, oh, Jesus Christ. "Oh, no. How about I give you some ideas?" Henry's ears were pink now as he tried to stammer something resembling words. "Cynthia, how far have you gone?" "Nowhere, nothing, none of your business." "Henry," she pouted, shoulders slumping and lips upturned. "Throw a girl a bone. I'm only trying to help." Henry didn't want to have this conversation, ever, anywhere, with anyone. Throat tight, he shook his head, hard. A sigh was her reply, and when he looked up, Cynthia had a surprisingly serious look. She stood, walking over, before putting her hands on his shoulders. "Listen, Henry, truthfully, I want to help. I know you might be nervous, but eventually you two will start getting somewhere, and out of everyone in this building, I'm the only one who can help you." Apparently she's the love guru? I know you love him. Love usually leads to that sort of thing. Sighing, he paused and gritted his teeth, trying to think. "Walter's so... I don't want to hurt him. He's a grown man. Yeah, he's different, but if anybody can take care of him, it's you." She smiled softly. "I want to help. At least promise that if it comes to that, you'll come talk to me." After a moment, Henry finally nodded. With so much blood in his head, he was dizzy. Cynthia seemed not to notice, patting his shoulder twice and smiling. "That's my boy." Then she turned, sauntered out the door, but not without looking back at the doorframe and smirking. Why'd she look at the doorframe to smirk? "Don't worry about it. It'll work out when the time comes." With one last wink, she was gone. God, this one might actually kill me. A note was taped to the refrigerator, and then Henry was off. He needed time away, time to think. Or maybe it was time for no thinking, for shoving away all the heavy things pulling him down. Whatever it was he needed it like air. So there he was, walking towards Toluca Lake with a vague idea in mind. Today the sun was rose-colored, shyly hidden behind a veil of clouds, with the water reflecting a gray-pink tint as it rolled against the shore. Henry stood right by the water, letting it wave over his ankles, and stared out over the surface. The fog was gone. He could see all the way to the craggy green rock formations on the other side, which became forests of tall trees, and a bit beyond was a town Henry knew well, Silent Hill. But he didn't dwell there. His eyes drifted back down to the water, deep and dark. How far down did it go? What was down there? Flinching, Henry turned away. He'd grown up around water, but seeing the prison Walter had grown up in, he couldn't help but remember the corpses of children when looking upon Toluca Lake. The man shivered. Coming down here was supposed to be relaxing. Sighing, the man shook his head and sat in the sand, the water lapping at his thighs. He was such a serious-minded person, even in death, and it didn't seem like a habit he would easily break. Staring out over Toluca Lake, he couldn't help but wonder if some of Silent Hill's evils dwelled below. He knew he and his friends were safe, tucked away in Walter's world, but what about those who weren't? Shaking his head, he pulled up his knees and rested his arms on them. Apparently, just being out in nature wasn't going to be enough of a distraction. A moment later, he divulged himself of his shirts and shoes. His shirts? I guess he did have multiple shirts, I guess. Throwing them up on the sand, opting to keep his jeans out of modesty, and then Henry began walking out into the lake. He just spent how long thinking about how there's so many dead bodies in the lake, and now he's gonna go swim. It felt like bathwater, not too hot or cold, sinking into his clothes as he waded out. It took a while for the ground to drop out from under his feet. By that time, he was at least 20 feet out. Henry let his body float to the surface, bobbing on the waves as he stared out at the sky. Sunlight blinded him for a moment, but once he started cutting the water with his arms, it fell behind the clouds again. He began doing a lazy version of the backstroke, relaxing on the lake and focusing on nothing at all. He didn't worry about Walter or his friends or whether he deserved all this happiness he was given. He just swam and let the water caress him. Maybe because he wasn't thinking about what he usually did, a thought came to him unbidden, something he hadn't thought of in a very long time. I wonder how Mom is. Yes?
Are you streaming?
Yes.
Oh my bad. I wanted to show you
Mm-hmm.
a picture of Lily.
Mm-hmm.
She hopped in the laundry basket.
Can I see?
Yeah. She's in jail.
Aww.
Oh, hold on.
Here, I'll show
And
the...
then that one.
Aww. Lily in a laundry basket. Oh, you really cannot see it. It's way too
Here, I
fucking
can
bright.
turn the brightness down and then you can do it. Hold on. How do I... Yeah, that'll probably work. Yeah.
Lily
Yeah, now
in
you
a
can
laundry
see it.
basket. Lily.
You gotta show them the picture of her in jail.
She's in jail. Cat jail.
I mean, hey, if Alfred starts being bratty again, I can just put him in there. Cat
Sounds
jail.
good.
Alright, have fun streaming. I just wanted to show you your lovely cat. Oh, Gandalf wants in.
Gandy, come in. Come on, buddy.
I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm back up.
Come on, Gandy. Come on. Is he just standing in the doorway?
He's like right at the... There he is.
Gandy.
You want me to close the door?
Yes, please.
Okay, bye.
We have a Gandalf now. Saved, but only for so long. Oh, God. This is my favorite image I made for today's stream. I really enjoyed making this image. It's a very good one. All right. For the 7th time, Walter wondered to himself why he was in Eileen's apartment. He'd made a promise to himself, and verbally to Henry, he would try harder to be closer to the other members of the apartment family. But that was easier said than done. No duh. Most of them still feared him, even if they'd gotten over their anger and hatred. But with time, things would get better. But talking and making friends, Walter snorted, crossing his arms. He couldn't do that. Only people could. That's sad. Walter? He glanced up slightly through his hair to see Eileen's smiling face. You all right? He managed to nod, though the crinkle of her eyes meant she didn't believe him. Her eyes are crinkled, apparently, like... Eileen walked over and leaned against the wall beside him. No one can just do something. It has to be described. So detailed. God. What's up? He shrugged uselessly, eyes to the floor. Of course, a moment later, her brunette hair was in his line of sight. She smiled at him. Come on, that sad face won't go away by itself. You can talk to me about it. Oh, Jesus. I could... He misses Henry, I bet. Cynthia approached from the doorway with a martini in hand. Why? Leaning against the counter with a sly smirk. Am I right? Where is he, by the way? Walter nodded his head towards the wall, and Eileen frowned. Why isn't he here? Cynthia waved her hand dismissively. I was just talking to him. He looked like he was working on something. I'm sure he'll be by later. Eileen cocked an eyebrow at her suspiciously, but Cynthia just smiled. Sighing, Eileen returned her gaze to Walter. You two aren't fighting, are you? He shook his head, eyes lowered. Of course we're not fighting. Henry's so giving. I would never want to hurt him. Never again. Those were all thoughts. He didn't say that. I suppose we simply needed some space, he muttered. but not really believing it, and he knew Eileen didn't either. Before she could complain again, Cynthia took her arm in a hold and began pulling her away. Come on, stop pestering the poor guy. She pushed her away, ignoring her indignant complaints, as Walter watched with half interest. Gandy is now here. Gandy. Gandy, comfort me. Terrible things are happening. Terrible things. Comfort me, Gandy. Oh, comfort me. Oh, you're purring. Even though you don't want me to hold you like this, you're still purring. I love you too, buddy. Oh, I got a headbutt. Oh, thank you, buddy. Okay. The others in the room seemed to be enjoying themselves, gathered around the chip bowl and the coffee table a few feet from Walter's antisocial position in the room. They were happy, and by all rights, Walter should be. So why wasn't he? Why did he feel slightly empty, on edge? Like Gandalf's breaking everything. Oh, God. Oh, no. No. Oh, God, this is going to be terrible. It all started when he and Henry became an item. Or something. The man flushed. It was wonderful. He had no complaints. It just lacked? No, of course not. Henry wasn't lacking. Maybe it was him. Maybe Walter was missing some vital part necessary for love. Perhaps that was why he burned when he held Henry, when they kissed. When they touched, it opened a throbbing ache inside him that persisted for hours, driving him insane, and he didn't know what it was. Being around Henry made it worse, but when he tried avoiding Henry, he felt more empty. Every kiss, every caress created a fire that simmered and burned until he was hollow inside, empty-headed and twitching and nervous, unsure what to do with himself. Sounds like he's having like a withdrawal or something. Oh, God, is this the only way I knew how to describe being horny? It must be his fault. He was broken, and now that someone loved him, he wasn't capable of returning it without this pain. But Henry was worth any pain in this world, any at all. Walter? When he glanced up, the dark-haired woman was in front of him again. Troubled? An irritated frown crossed his face. I thought you told Eileen to leave me alone. She smirked, hands on her hips. I did, because she doesn't know what's bothering you. I do. Why is Cynthia? I know why. But, why is everyone here? God, there's just so many layers of why this is so, it's so very quickly, everyone is just cool with the fact that, hey guys, I was brainwashed. I might have murdered you, but it wasn't my fault, my bad. And Cynthia is, the only one that knows what sex is. The only one. Oh, God. Come on, talk to Cynthia. I think I can help. Walter watched her glittering eyes, belied with some kind of secret knowledge. Did she know something he didn't? With one last turn of his head, he finally gave in. It's Henry, or it's me. Something feels wrong. He crossed his arms, that nervous feeling rising again. For a moment, he hesitated, and Cynthia waited patiently. When we touch, we kiss, it feels unsatiating, as if something's missing. The woman hummed, breaking into a grin. You don't have to tell me. I know exactly. You do, 'cause I don't. I don't know why anything. She wiggled her eyebrows, walking up with a sexy saunter. Walter noticed and frowned, backing up a little. Oh, Jesus Christ. I don't want to read this. I don't want to read this. I don't want to read it. I don't want to. It's defeated me. It has defeated me. I have overcome so many fan fictions, and this one, I can't let this one beat me. I can't. Oh, God, I'm crying. Oh, Jesus. Okay, let's just get through. Cynthia. Never said my name before. Her eyes became half-lidded. Suddenly her hand reached up and touched his cheek, drifting lightly over the skin. Walter flinched away. Don't feel shy, dear. It'll feel good. What the hell? Two arms came around his waist, and Cynthia's assets were pressed against his chest. What? She wiggled the eyebrows again, shoving her pelvis against his in a rough manner, which caused Walter to pull back, but that only made his head lean closer to hers. You don't want it? No, I don't want this. You don't want to have sex. Walter thought about the question. He knew the definition of the word, but the action, color flushed his face. I mean, I guess, but you don't want it with me. So who do you want it with? Walter's brain shut down. The light of realization dawning appeared in his eyes. The light bulb appeared. Oh, Walter muttered, and his eyes grew wide. Oh. The sexy look became a beaming grin as Cynthia backed away and laughed. Took you long enough. But Walter looked lost. Are we gonna... Oh, God, how long does this scene go? Jesus Christ. Walter looked lost, eyebrows furrowed as he looked down at his hands. It made sense now. He wanted Henry, wanted to have sex, see beyond the man's thin layers of clothes, the smooth, thin body, his hands on him, and Henry's on his, kissing more than just lips. Settle down, boy. Cynthia laughed, recognizing the dark look in his eyes. You're not with your soon-to-be lover yet. The words sent a shiver down his spine, one of anticipation and fear. But Nodding, the woman tightened her grip on Walter's arm, pulling him down the hallway. Come on, let's get out of here. Walter turned to stare wide-eyed at her, about to back away. Oh, no, I'm not giving demonstrations. There's a difference between sex with a man and a woman. Walter flushed darkly, realizing that Cynthia's shout had drawn the attention of everyone else. Mom, what's sex? Little Walter asked. Just come on. Cynthia dragged Walter down the hall, shutting the door behind them, and thus the completely verbal lesson began. Oh, Jesus. We are not even to the worst part yet. We are not even to the worst part. Do I have another? I think there's one more image in the slideshow. Yes, this is the last image in the slideshow because I couldn't, YouTube would take the video down if I tried to depict anything else that happens in this fic, and I don't think we can read it all. I will do my best. Oh, God. Henry arrived home to find it empty, despite night quickly descending. Worry hit him a bit, but he closed his eyes and breathed deeply. Everything will be fine. Walter could handle himself. He was probably out relaxing, too. The brunette, still a bit concerned, decided to try and distract himself from his earlier heavy thoughts and deep monologuing. Video games seemed like a good enough cure. He'd never played them as much during his life as he did now, and that wasn't because he suddenly had more free time. Somehow they'd simply become more fulfilling. Maybe because now I'm actually paying attention to what they are, instead of playing to keep from doing anything else. Henry had been replaying many old games he used to play, finding things he'd missed the first time. Kneeling by the shelf, he scanned the games and decided to play one he hadn't in a while. Why is this so detailed? Why is this so important? Metal Gear Solid. He turned on the system, set it up, got a controller, and collapsed onto the couch. As he waited for the titles to pass, the Konami symbols to disappear, his thoughts wandered again to earlier that morning and the wake-up kiss he'd received. The soft yet firm lips on his, which descended over his chin and across his skin, marking as they went. How have they done... Okay, I guess if Walter's, really emotionally, he just didn't get the full, why, I guess, just, it's so weird that I made that, a big thing, Walter, what does sex do? And yet they were already intimate. I guess, okay. The trust in those touches, the surrender, as Walter opened himself up to him, mentally and physically. It was dominating and yet submissive, because Henry knew he was the only person Walter had ever shared this with. I don't understand that sentence. I don't understand. The memories had him shuddering, eyes rolling back. He's having a seizure. He's having a seizure. So am I. I'm also gonna have my eyes roll in the back of my head. I'm sweating. I'm sweating. Henry hardly noticed as the start screen appeared, hands trembling as they clutched the controller tight. Suddenly, he groaned and shook his head, teeth gritted. He couldn't give in like this. It was... Sighing, he whipped some hair out of his face and tried ignoring the throbbing between his thighs. Excuse me for a moment. Pushing all else aside, he hit X, chose start game, and tried losing himself instead. It did work, and after a few minutes of trouble fighting his libido, the game's story and gameplay were involved enough to keep Henry thinking about it and nothing else. Just so you know, Metal Gear Solid turns off your boner. It was the story of a man... Why am I going into such detail about Metal Gear Solid? It was the story of a man named Solid... Why is this so funny to me? It was the story of a man named Solid Snake, whose history Henry was vaguely aware of, having once played the previous game in dark rooms, trying not to think at all, whose mission it was to infiltrate an island base and stop his brother from setting off nukes. At least in simple terms, that was the story as Henry remembered it from his previous playthroughs. But now, no longer drenched in sorrow and half-living, Henry could see he'd missed quite a lot about this game. It was enthralling, captivating, and did set aside Henry's previous worries and stresses. I see now where I was going with this. Letting him play with a light heart until he realized hours had passed since he began and he was already well into the game. It wasn't like most games he'd played, since RPGs tended to be his forte. Sneaking through a military base was very strange for him, but it was fun. The characters were interesting, understandable. Henry found himself strangely attracted to Liquid Snake, the brother of the hero, who was the antagonist of the game. The British accent was a little strange, but he was a pretty cool character who ran around in a trench coat with no shirt, revealing a well-toned chest. The long blonde hair was a rather nice touch, too. Stop right there. Ugh, face-palming, Henry gritted his teeth and realized he'd come full circle. The game, entertaining as it had been, had only delayed Henry facing the inevitable. He was sexually attracted to Walter Sullivan, and the feeling wasn't going to go away anytime soon. I really hope that Solid Snake, he's in a lot of crossovers, but this is very much, clearly the most honorable one. Truly the greatest crossover he's ever been in is being mentioned in a horny Silent Hill fanfiction. Oh, Jesus. There was no way to stifle it, to lock it in a box and never look at it again, because it was much too strong for that, and to try would be disrespectful. A shuddering sigh. How do you even do a shuddering sigh? Henry paused the game, setting the... Oh, Jesus. Set the controller on the table and leaned forward. Elbows on his knees, Henry let his head fall forward. His hands ran over his hair, gripping slightly. What could he do? He couldn't deny it, but he could never act on it. Shivering, the man turned his knees inward shyly as that familiar burn started between them. A gulp, a nervous biting of his lip, and Henry glanced down. There was his problem, which he couldn't keep under tabs. So what could he do? Henry moved his hands a little, eyes flickering around the floor nervously. Each move his body made was stunted, jumpy. Slowly, his hands fluttered downward, hesitant and trembling. His arms rested on his thighs, hands between them as Henry tried, steadying his breath. What the hell was he doing? He'd never done such a thing before! You're 14 and you trip and you accidentally get... Nah, man, yeah, you all been there. I wrote this and I know how teenagers do. The brunette closed his eyes and sighed, finding in this moment another trait his father had instilled in him. It wasn't a sin to want pleasure, and it wasn't evil to give it to yourself. When did I make his dad a masturbation hater? I mean, I guess it fits the characterization. But I don't think I wrote that. I don't remember that. Determined to try this, to find a way to rid himself of desire without hurting Walter, Henry finally lifted his hand. I don't think YouTube will let me read the rest of that. Oh my god! No! It's literally written like, he began pressing down and jumped and his hand flew away. Mouth agape, he stared at his hand. What was this feeling? Like something electric building. Was that normal? Had he hurt something? Oh my god, this is so bad. He waited, and when he didn't have a seizure or start dying, he shyly tried again. He's doing it over his jeans. No. You take the jeans off. No. Okay. He's still in the jeans. 3 paragraphs down, he's still in the jeans. He's trembling, he's in the jeans. He's imagining Walter, but still in the jeans. Okay, and then Walter. Okay, so then he says Walter's name out loud. And then Walter is in the room because he didn't hear him come in the room. So Walter's like, hey, babe, let's do it. And Henry's like, oh my god, I'm so embarrassed. And Walter's like, nah, I just had a sex ed talk with Cynthia, so let's do the Bone Town. And then they do it on the couch. Oh god, I really don't think I can read more than, like, if I want to actually archive this stream on YouTube, I legally, morally don't think I can read more. Let me see if I can, like, oh my god, it is so, has he taken the jeans off? Where? I think he did it in the jeans. I don't think he ever took the jeans off. Okay, then they start doing more, and they start doing other, and I guess eventually they take the jeans off? Maybe? No. Okay, there is a cute moment where, they laugh at each other because Henry's blushing so much, and the blush is, like, on his chest, and Walter's like, look, you're red, and then they both laugh. That's kind of cute. It's cute. It's baby's first sex story. Oh my god. And they just do it over the pants, and they jerk it on the couch. Oh my god. Wow. Oh no, they do the do. They do. Okay. And then they fall asleep on the couch without cleaning up, so that is going to be a hell of a morning. Jesus Christ. I will link this in the Discord. I don't want to put it on YouTube. I will link the Discord. You read at your own risk. You can read that scene. It was written by a 17-year-old who had no experience, no knowledge of anything. But there is a final scene afterwards. Henry woke up and was hit by an immediate feeling of peace settling into his soul. How are you hit by an immediate feeling of peace? No worries, no heartaches, nothing. No deep thoughts coming to bother his mind. Just joy. That's true. There is that post-high. Blinking, he realized the source was still sleeping on and beside him. His right arm was losing feeling. It didn't matter to him. Henry looked down on the man, and something strange happened. His face lit up. His mouth parted into a bright grin. His eyes burned bright. His eyes are on fire, apparently. And he let out something like a squeal. He moved his arm to cradle Walter, squeezing him tight, letting his eyes fall shut again and his head fall onto Walter's shoulder. Everything was more than right with the world. Henry had found a treasure he never thought he'd deserve. Within minutes, he'd fallen asleep, sleeping dreamlessly, but surrounded with an inner warmth. An hour later, half awake, Henry felt arms cradled him and noticed he was moving, but he recognized Walter's husky scent, letting out a quiet moan of approval as his head fell against Walter's neck. He found his body being settled into bed, and the bed creaked as another body joined his. Still half asleep, Henry grunted and scooted closer as he could to the man, arms curled up close to his body, knees pulled in like a child. He didn't hear the deep chuckle, but felt the arms coming around him, the blanket falling over his body. Once again he fell back into deep sleep. On and off for hours, he fell in and out of wakefulness, sometimes opening his eyes to gaze on his lover, whose pale skin seemed healthier than ever despite little bruises here and there, the swollen lips. Sometimes he felt Walter's eyes on him, felt a hand gently caressing his cheek or his shoulder, sometimes those poor lips pressing against his forehead. They slept so close together they were almost on top of each other again. Night passed, the sun rose, warming their skin, and the two of them woke by it together. Henry's half-closed eyelids shyly averted down, a sheepishly happy smile on his face as Walter chuckled and kissed his face multiple times in multiple places. He rose out of bed only to close the blinds before settling by his lover again. They went without food, because getting it would mean leaving the cocoon they'd created, and why would the dead need food? But they needed this. The warmth, the comfort, the support, the soft repetitive breathing and the rising and falling of the chest. Henry let his head rest over Walter's heartbeat, comforted by the rhythm, sleeping with it in his ear. His usually curious mind didn't even wonder why the dead had heartbeats. It was sated and asleep, too. Night started approaching again, and they were still in bed, both of them awake, lying together, limp and tired, happy and content. They talked a little in light voices, admitted desires and fears, asking nervous questions and blushing. Their questions both led back to Cynthia, though in verbal form they talked about conspiring against them. Quietly inside they both thanked her 1,000 times. More questions were asked, more things said, which led to blushing on one side or the other or both. Henry stuttered a little over some topics, while Walter mumbled incoherently over others. They admitted things and wondered things and made plans to prepare for them in the future. Neither of them were ready yet, but they would be, one day. The topic shifted to other things, varying greatly as their thoughts changed, and for hours as night fell, they simply shared words with each other. If the doorbell rang, they didn't hear it. If the phone went off, they ignored it. Nothing existed outside of them. Most might think spending all that time doing what seemed like nothing at all would be a waste. Most would get up, get moving, do something, or at least continue the actions started the night before. These two cared little for any of that. They were dead, then earned their right to eternal rest by that fact, but they deserved it even more, since their lives had provided almost no happiness at all. It wasn't eternal, but they rested together there, in an embrace they'd never shared, with feelings they'd never felt, and happiness they'd never known seeping into their bones. Walter? The blonde had almost been asleep again, but his blurry eyes opened to look at Henry. The brunette glanced down, suddenly feeling he was being very foolish, but a hand moved to caress his neck and encourage him. He looked back up. Thanks. Smiling, Walter let out a chuckle, moving his thumb to run over Henry's lips. I should be the one thanking you. The brunette shook his head, moving forward to put his forehead against the other. No, I mean it. Last night, if you'd walked away, you didn't have to do anything, and I'd been left alone there. Henry closed his eyes. Thanks. If you hadn't approached me, I don't know if I'd ever approached you. Walter waited until Henry had opened his eyes again. Never at all? Shyly, he shook his head. No, I wanted you to be happy. I didn't want to hurt you. I thought my desire was horrible, that somehow it might hurt you. He was interrupted by a scoff, the hand on his neck moving to squeeze his shoulder. I think I would have gone years yearning and being miserable without saying anything. A deep frown. Almost a grimace settled onto Walter's face as he pulled Henry into a deep kiss, pressing hard and fast, forcing his tongue into the other man's mouth. There he dominated. Yes, the tongue is dominating. Yes. Yes. Sweeping across the roof of his mouth and his cheeks. When they parted, both were panting. Walter's anger was still there, but he managed a smirk, leaning down to Henry's ear, licking the rim before letting out a whisper. I'll have to make sure to bring you out of your shell then, he muttered. I won't let you hide this beautiful desire. I'll have my way with you whenever and wherever as much as possible, until you can't help but throw yourself at me when you lay your eyes on me. I will torture you, Henry, and you will love it. When he'd finished his little tirade, Henry shyly nodding his approval, embarrassed above all else, but smiling. You know, I didn't hate how that ended. That was cute. For Baby's first attempt, like, that was a very cute, like, post-sex intimacy, coming together moment of people that just trust each other now. That was kind of cute. The rest was, oh Jesus, oh God, oh no. Oh God, I had no idea what I was writing, but it came together. Haha, it came together in the end. And as I said, if you want to read the part that I did not read out loud, it is linked in the general chat of the Discord, because I feel like posting porn publicly on YouTube is a bad idea. There is also an author's note, a message from the past. Hi there. I meant to post this much sooner, but I wanted it to be perfect, and I kept changing things, yada yada. Hope y'all like it. It's been a long time since I included stuff like this in a story, but I felt it necessary. And there will be more in the future, but there's still plot, guys. Don't forget about that, XD. So this chapter was pretty much just to satisfy the inner fangirl in us all. The second arc of the story will probably be more laid back than the other, but the darkness of Silent Hill will return. I hope you guys enjoyed this chapter, and there's more to come. Oh, God. Oh, man. It wasn't in a volcano, Lobzel. It was in a canyon. God, that was really something. And then we're not even to the, well, okay, I'll say this. I think this was probably the most cringe thing I wrote at this era of, like, being an older teen rather than a younger teen. Kind of if you divide it into, like, middle school, high school era. But there is, I'm 90% certain there is a fade to black sex scene with Pyramid Head and James in another entry going forward. So that's probably gonna be a nightmare. That's probably gonna be something that will haunt the dreams of all of us, as much as this one also haunts the dreams so much. So yeah, why did I do this again? I'm covered in sweat, my eyes are burning, my throat is raw, I feel like I've been screaming. My soul is screaming. My soul is screaming. But you know, you are all here with me. Joe Biden was here with me. You all suffered with me, and that means something, that we've all suffered together here today. Thank you for returning for Fanfic Friday once again. If you haven't seen the new video, go check that out. Like, comment, subscribe to feed the dark YouTube algorithm gods and make the video succeed. I'm going to go lie face down on the floor in a coma for the next 12 hours. And I will probably see you tomorrow for something else that is not this. Because I am going to go erase this from my mind. When's the next Fanfic Friday? When I successfully reboot my brain. Maybe next Friday. No, actually, it might not be, because I'm going to be out of town for like 2 weeks. And I'm not going to promise that, because I may be gone. So maybe in September. Probably the first or second week of September when I'm back from Atlanta. There's always a slideshow to go with the Fanfic Fridays. And if you've not watched the old ones or you didn't know this, they are all now public on the book channel. Link in the description. So if you want to go torture yourself with all the, like, 25 other episodes of Fanfic Friday, you are free to do so. I will not do that. You can do that. I'm gonna go die now. Thanks again. Why am I thanking you? You did this to me. I should be blaming you. Bye.